ICE is buying incinerators, and now we have proof. A Navy contract was just released showing the Navy is managing the construction of a massive network of immigration detention centers across the nation. And what's included in the contract is extremely disturbing. It describes tent cities that can hold 10,000 people each with a specific provision for biohazard incinerators under the medical and death section. That means they are specifically planning for death and choosing to burn the evidence right there on site. The reason DHS is paying the Navy $55 billion for this is so they can get this nationwide network of giant detention centers with infrastructure for handling death built as quickly as possible. And they tried to do it quietly by updating the Navy's existing contract to make this deal instead of creating a new contract specifically for this. Here are my sources if you want more information.
Well, we got some of these in here today. CT Sales in Dawson, Minnesota. These are incinerators. This is the XL. Floors perforated for air and natural, so they'll burn hot. It's got to be 3/16 construction, the whole thing. It's heavy. Fork pockets to move it with your skid loader or forklift. Telehandler. This is the large. This is the medium. Can empty them out. Yeah.
All right, Shalom. I want to give all praise and glory to the Almighty Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Ha Rakakodash, double honors to our apostle elders, which rule Great Millstone well and which taught us the truth. And Shalom to the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel, Wa Abba Babal. And this is why we say Abba Babal. All right, they're plotting. The wicked are plotting. The wicked are the so-called white race, the red devil the Bible speaks of. They are plotting on trying to murder us because they're trying to alter the prophecies, all right, which will fail. And it's going to end with them being consumed in fire, all right, because you could clearly see these are being made to put people inside so that they could incinerate them. All right, this ain't nothing new. Nebuchadnezzar tried to do it against the Israelites in the past, and we see what happened to him and his kingdom. All right, so we have a sure word of prophecy, and you would do well if you took heed. Now I'm going to jump to the story of Mordecai, all right, which there was a hater on him, an Edomite hater, Haman, all right, and Haman built gallows trying to put the Israelites to death, all right, and that Haman was trying to destroy, which were the Jews back then, the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, which were in captivity under at this time, the Persians, which before them and with them were the Medes, and then before them was Nebuchadnezzar. All right, the Babylonian Assyrian kingdom. All right, and before them we were in the Egyptian captivity, and we see what happened to Pharaoh and his military. All right, so in Esther 4 verse 7, and Mordecai told him of all that happened unto him, and of the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasuries for the Jews to destroy them, which at first the king Ahasuerus was with him, but when he found out through Esther, Mordecai's niece, which he loved, that the Edomite Haman was trying to plot against the Israelites, which he fell in love with Esther, all right, in a ballroom, remember, at a banquet. Let me see here. I just want to get the point. Let me get it here. Right here in Esther 5, verse 14, then said Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends unto him, let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and tomorrow speak thou unto the king that Mordecai, which was an Israelite, may be hanged thereon. Then go thou in merrily and happily with the king unto the banquet. And the thing pleased Haman, and caused the gallows to be made. So the same spirit is on these Edomites, the so-called Caucasians, the red devil the Bible speaks of today. And they're making furnaces to burn us, all right? And this has been done again before by Nebuchadnezzar, which his kingdom fell. This is why you had the Medes ruling, the Persians ruling, then the Greeks and the Romans. Now Haman is an Edomite, all right, and it's going to show you what happens to these Edomites that prepare to try to go against the Israelite, Yahweh's chosen people through Yahushai. All right, so before Haman was put to death, he was put to shame. It says in Esther 6, verse 13, and Haman told Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends everything that had befallen him. Then said his wise men and Zeresh his wife unto him, if Mordecai be the seed of the Jews, which he was of the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, or Levi, those were the Jews. All right, the northern kingdom was already over here in what you know as the Americas. Before whom thou hast begun to fall, thou shalt not prevail against him, but shall surely fall before him. So that's a prophecy still true today. All right, Esau, he's already falling in front of us, and he's going to be begging for life in front of us as we have the ability, power, and authority to take away everything from him, including his life, because he's forfeiting his life through these treacherous deals that he's making to try to take our lives. All right, because our lives is precious in the eyes of Yahweh and his son Yahushai, which we have a host of angels that's going to fight for us. The Edomite are nothing. And when you really think about it, they're nothing. They're the minority. All right, they're not the majority. And then to the spirits of all that exist, they are really nothing. They're nothing. They're less than nothing. That's why they're going to be extinct. All right. How are we going to have a world of peace and you got this motherfucker coming up with ideas to burn bodies for his pleasure? You see? So this is why Esau is going to be made extinct, because we don't need him no more. All right, Yahweh Shem Yahushai said there is no place in heaven for this devil, the so-called white race, that comes up with these devices to take away the peace of the earth, right? He wants to murder people so he could control them, right? Control certain things. So this is why the Lord is going to extinct Esau, the so-called white race, the wicked that rule the world. Now, let's see. It says right here. So Esther got the Persian king, which is her husband, and his servant Haman, the Edomite that wanted to hang the Israelites on the gallows because Mordecai didn't bow before him. And Mordecai said, hey, I'm better than this man. Why should I bow before him? You know, just like the three holy children in Babylon that said, we will not bow. Even if our God does not save us, we will stay faithful to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahushai. And what happened? Yahushai was in the furnace with them. And in that, you know, that image you saw of what they're building, right, to a science, which they were, you know, very calculated in what they're doing, you could pack a couple men in that furnace. You see? So the same thing happened before. And what happened to them that plotted against us? The same is going to happen to these heathen, but even more, because they're going to go into extinction. All right? The Lord's going to extinct these nasty, vile creatures, Edomites. All right? The so-called white race, the wicked that corrupt the world and teach the nations war. It says in Esther 7 verse 6, and Esther said, the adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman. All right, and that's what the Israelites are doing right now. As the bride to Yahushua, we're crying to the Lord, saying this wicked, vile person that takes peace from the earth is the Edomite, which was Haman's bloodline. All right, today you have the Edomites ruling, and they're today trying to plot death on the Israelites. All right, it says then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen, which right now, they're afraid right now. This is why they're coming down with great wrath, knowing that they have but a short time. They only have a short time to live and live free, because they're going to go into captivity first after the destruction of their wicked ass kingdom. All right, this great whore, which is going to be burnt with fire, which is just because they're trying to burn us with fire. And they're going to go into captivity, all right, and then they're going to be made extinct after 1,000 years of slavery. It says in Esther 7, verse 7, and the king arising from the banquet of wine in his wrath went into the palace garden, and Haman stood up to make request for his life to Esther, the queen, which was an Israelite woman. And this is what's going to happen. They're going to there's going to be Edomites that they're going to even try to act like they're for us because they realize their future. All right, and they're going to beg for mercy, and no mercy is going to be shown now in the kingdom, all right, and even up to the destruction that is plotted against them in righteousness by Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahushua, we know through the spirit of prophecy. It says, for he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. The king's going to put him to death, all right? And Mordecai, he rose to power. That's why Haman was upset with him also, because he told the truth. There was some men that were plotting against the king to assassinate him, and Mordecai told him, and he put those men to death, and then he lifted up Mordecai to a position of power. And this is what really pissed off Haman. And that's what's happening with Edom right now. Edom is losing power, and we're raising up to power. And it's even shown in the women. These women are starting to, one, understand that they need a man. Two, that they're going to be one woman of a man that has many women. That's the reality. Three, that the Israelite man, and really this should be the first one, that the Israelite man is the greatest man, because Almighty Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahushua is with the Israelite man. And even these reprobates, they have salt, and that salt goes back to our power, Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahushua. All right, because they're Israelites. But in this generation, there's 2/3 that are going to be forsaken for their unfaithfulness in this wicked kingdom. And it says in Esther 7 verse 8, then the king returned out of the palace garden into the place of the banquet of wine, and Haman the Edomite was fallen upon the bed whereon Esther was. Then said the king, will he force the queen also before me in the house? So he's up in her space begging for his life. And when the king comes back, he's already going to put him to death. He was just trying to figure out how he's going to do it, right? And he comes back in to declare the judgment. He sees him laying in the area where she is begging for his life. So he's saying this motherfucker, you know what I'm saying? He has no boundaries. He is wicked, all right? So he's going to destroy him. All right. And it says, let's see. Then said the king, will he force the queen also before me in the house? As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. So they snatched him up. They literally freaking covered his face, and like they would do like a kidnapping, just snatch him, right? Covered his face with a rag, pulled his head back, snapped his neck. It says, and Harbonah, one of the verse 9, and Harbonah, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, behold, also the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who had spoken good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman. Then the king said, hang him thereon. So, verse 10, so they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath pacified. See, so it's a terrible thing to fall into the hand of Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai, which he's going to give the heathen to the elect. All right. And we're going to pay him back for what they've done unto us. Hebrews 10, verse 31. I'm sorry, Hebrews 10, verse 31. It says, it is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. The God it's speaking of is the elect. To fall into the hands, it says Dios. Dios is talking about the elect. This is like Elohim. All right? Because the New Testament is in Greek and the Old Testament is in Hebrew. So in the Old Testament, you will see Elohim. All right? In the New Testament, you see Dios. See, it says a God, lowercase. It says deities or divinities, which is dealing with his counsels. Where does his counsels dwell? His interests, where are the interests of the Lord made known? And the things due to him is through his prophets, his elect men. All right? So it is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living power, which he's moving through elect men of the nation of Israel, which eventually they're going to try to put us in those furnaces. And this is when their kingdom is really going to come to its end. And Yahweh sent his son, Yahweh Shai, and he's going to avenge us. Revelation 2, verse 10. It says, fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil, the so-called white race, shall cast some of you into prison, which they're building these in the prisons, right, to destroy bodies. Before it says, behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, your faith be tested, because Esau Edom, the so-called white man, is Satan in the flesh. And ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life, which whether we live or die, we're going to be delivered by Yahweh Shai and given new bodies. All right. And then he's going to give us the heathen, and we're going to pay them back for what they've done unto us, which it tells you in 2 Thessalonians chapter 1, and it is verse 6. My phone froze up. These devils, they search things out and then they get upset when they see the truth. Little bitch ass Edomites, you sorry ass pieces of shit. That's what needs to be in the furnace, is Edomites. All right, because that would make the world a better place. The Lord rebuke you. Yahweh Ba'asham, Yahushai, Mashapaitim, Kal Adawamium, Wa Gawayim, Wa Abba Babal, Wa Hawashai Wa Ba'asham, Yahushai, Ba'asham Ha Rakakodash, the water Yahweh Ba'asham, Yahushai, Ba'asham Ha Rakakodash. Yeah, it's frozen. So let me go ahead and close that out and reopen it. Second Thessalonians chapter 1 verse 6. It says, seeing it is a righteous thing with Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai through his elect men to recompense tribulation to them that trouble you. Let's see what the NLT says. In his justice, he will pay back those who persecute you, which he's sending his son Yahushai back. And when he comes back, he's going to avenge us. Revelation 18 and 20. It says, rejoice over her. And this is why you really shouldn't be down. You should be, rejoicing in Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai. Yeah, we mourn for the abominations that is done in the midst of Jerusalem, and for these wicked that are plotting against us. We lament to the Lord, but in the same we rejoice because we have a sure word of promise, which is prophecy, and you would do well to take heed to these promises, being an Israelite, especially here in America, where the great judgment of this great whore is going to take place. This great Babylon is going to be destroyed by nuclear fire, and it is going to be turned into a lake of fire, and there's going to be gnashing of teeth, all right, and great pain, because the Lord avenged his elect. Revelation 18 verse 20, rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai Ba'asham Ha Rakakodash hath avenged you on her. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. It's going to be turned into a lake of fire that burns for a long time via nuclear missile from its allies and enemies, the NATO nations, the UN nations, which is its allies, and then the BRIC nations, all right, which is going to be like a savior to these other nations against the wicked, because the wicked and their allies are divided and at war with each other, all the way up to the head of the eagle here in Babylon and the vice. All right, you got the JD and Nero 47, and they're bumping heads. They asked him about the Iran conflict, and JD, the vice, couldn't even give an answer. He says, you got to talk to Nero 47, which shows they're not together on it. They're divided. All right, they're divided. See, if because they're supposed to be like a husband and a wife. The head of the house, and then the JD is a vice, which steps in support of the husband, right, in the house. So then even they say that the president is the father of the country. So then that would make the vice the mother. All right. And they're against each other. A house divided shall not stand. A kingdom divided cannot stand. And this is all happening because we're at the end of this man, the so-called white man, Esau Edom, which this is why he's coming down with great wrath, knowing that he had but a short time. He's about to go into a brutal ass slavery. All right, going into a brutal slavery. It says in Revelation 12:12, it says, therefore rejoice, ye heavens, them that rejoice in the gospel, rejoice when you hear these prophecies coming to pass. And ye that dwell in them, woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, which there's going to be a nuclear war, World War III, and America's going to lose that war, and it's going to be destroyed by nuclear missiles. For the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath. This is why he's making furnaces to burn our bodies in, because he knoweth that he had but a short time. And when the dragon, which is Esau's government, saw that he was cast unto the earth, which they're going to be put in slavery, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child. So he's going to persecute the Israelites. But this is going to cause Yahweh to send Yahushai with the host of heaven to fight for us. It says in verse 7, Revelation 12, verse 7, and there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels, the host of heaven, fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels. The dragon is the Edomites government, America, EU, right? Which they have these other nations confederate with them, whether it's through false doctrines, the fiat currency, right? It says, and the dragon fought and his angels, his military. This is why they even have a group called the Blue Angels that do tricks in their military plane. It says, and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. They're worthless because they're a waster that was created to destroy. And what we're about to have is eternal peace on earth, prosperity, because of the righteousness of Yahweh Bahasham, Yahushai, which the elect men right now prophesy. But in that day when we're in the kingdom, we're going to enforce it with an iron fist. All right? Written in the minds of these people, all right, that they be understanding of the way of the judgments of the Lord. Esau is wicked. It already shows you he's wicked. Everything he does against the Lord. So he's going to be made extinct, and he's at his end. It says, and the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent, which he was that serpent in the Garden of Eden, that treacherous person and really nation that deceived the Israelites. All right, it says, and really that deception went throughout the world because they used the Israelites to corrupt the whole world. That's why you got Jay-Z, Beyonce, Cardi B, Nicki Minaj, all these different Jake that are sellouts. You had this back then, all right? It says, called the devil, which he's the deceiver and accuser, and Satan, the adversary, which that shows you he's the adversary, because who's he putting those furnace in his Ice Cube and Ice T programs? You see, so he's against the Israelite. All right, the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American Indian, who has their Ice Cubes and Ice Teas been harassing, been kidnapping. It's the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. Eventually, they're going to chew their way to the Israelite elect men and the women that are cleaving to the Israelite men and children. And this is when Yahweh's power is going to lift the standard for us, because we serve Yahweh Bahasham, Yahushai. Though we be earthen vessel, right? We have the Holy Spirit. So he's going to fight for us through the Spirit. It says, which deceiveth the whole world, he was cast out into the earth. He's going to be made a slave. And his angels were cast out with him, because there's going to be a nuclear destruction. All right. At the same time, the military of this devil is going to be melted in the valley of slaughter, in the valley of Jehoshaphat. Yahweh's Mashapach. All right. It says in verse 10, and I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, which by the gospel is said on earth, now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our power, Yahweh, and the power of his anointed, which is on his elect through his son's name, Yahushai, for the accuser, the devil, the so-called white race, the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accuse them before our power day and night, which they're going to be throwing a lot of people into those furnaces. But it's when they get to the elect that they're going to, as they say, fuck around and find out. All right? Because he's going to actually turn some of the elect men from fishermen to hunters. But she's going to give them spiritual power. All right? In verse 11, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb, were related to Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai by blood, and Yahushai was sent as a sacrifice for that bloodline, starting with the elect. And by the word of their testimony, which we tell you the gospel, the good news of Yahushai's return, and they loved not their lives unto the death, because the devil is coming down with great wrath, knowing that he had but a short time, and he's plotting on putting some of us to death, which some of us will die, but not all of us. But, we all have the promise to be changed, but there is some Israelites, which the majority will be protected because we're only few, all right, a remnant of Israel. So the Lord's going to raise the standard for the elect's sake. It tells you right here. I'll start at 18. According to their deeds, accordingly he will repay. Fury to his adversaries, recompense to his enemies. To the islands he will repay recompense. He's going to pay you heathen back for everything you did. All right, these 2/3 that are with you, whether it's in your military or in your education systems or your correctional systems or any of your racist programs, your institutions that you use to institutionalize the Israelites, you have Israelites involved in these things, really sold out, believing in the lies, they're going to be destroyed with you. All right? So the Lord's going to put fear, all right, fear in these men's hearts, okay? The fear of the Lord is what it's called. It says in verse 19, so shall they fear the name of Yahweh from the west and his glory from the rising of the sun, because the whole earth is going to shake when Yahushua comes back. When the enemy shall come in like a flood, the spirit of Yahweh shall lift up a standard against him. So we're going to have an increase of power. And we're going to be able to literally shoot light out of us like lightning. And it's going to pretty much devour our enemies. It tells you that in Revelations 11. All right, that we'll be able to breathe fire on all those that try to harm us. All right. So when you go into this Hebrew word, this is why it's going to be a fearful thing for them to fall into the hands of the God, and it's talking about the elect, the ones that have the power of Yahweh on earth that are Israelite men, shall lift up the standard, right? Nawas, it says to flee, to escape, to take flight, which we'll be able to fly, depart, disappear, to fly, to the attack on horseback, which we will have spiritual power. It says to take flight, to put to flight, which they show you in these movies that they'll grab someone and throw him miles and miles away. All right. And our military and one man chases him. All right. Because he's a god. Lightning's coming out of his eyes and his mouth and his hands and off his hair and his fingers. And the earth is trembling. They're going to run to drive hastily. And they show you this in the movie Brightburn, right? Where he's able to just take one of their employees and turn him into a red mist. It says to cause to disappear, hide, put to death. All right. So it's for the deliverance of our people, though. Okay, this power that we have and that we're going to display is for the deliverance of the Israelites, which it's going to increase their faith. All right. It says, and the Redeemer, Yahushua, shall come to Zion, the Israelites, and unto them that turn from transgression in Jacob, that repent, saith Yahweh. As for me, this is my covenant with them. This is his promise that he made with us, saith Yahweh, my spirit that is upon thee, which we have the spirit to prophesy, and my words which I have put in thy mouth, this is why they're mad at us, shall not depart out of thy mouth, which they want to murder us. But it says right there, shall not depart out of thy mouth. So he's going to save a remnant. Shit, the earth is going to fight for us. Nor out of the mouth of thy seed, nor out of the mouth of thy seed, saith Yahweh, from henceforth and forever. So you're done, Esau. You're done. Put a fork in you, all right? Because you're done. Your kingdom's done. Your future is set. You're done. You can't alter nothing, all right? You're just doing exactly what you're supposed to do. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. And you're going to get exactly what you're supposed to get. It tells you that in Isaiah 3 and verse 11. I'll start at 10. It says, say ye to the righteous, talking about the elect of Israel, that it shall be well with him. So don't fear. Fear the Lord. Don't fear man. For they shall eat the fruit of their doings, which we're going to receive the salvation we prophesy of through Yahweh's Son, Yahushua. Woe unto the wicked, it shall be ill with him, for the reward of his hand shall be given him. Let me get the NLT. It says, but the wicked are doomed, for they will get exactly what they deserve. All right? So don't even trip. The Israelites that believe in Yahweh's Son, Yahushua, hey, stay waiting on Yahweh Bahasham, Yahushua. Don't even, this should make your faith grow to see these scriptures come alive in reality. Galatians 6 and verse 7, be not deceived. God, and this God once again is talking about the elect, is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, remember, we're gods. These heathen are men. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. So they're going to get what they deserve, all right, when they try to fuck with the Lord's elect. It says God, it says Dios. This is talking about his elect, all right. What it say in Romans 8? Who could bring, let me get verse 1. There is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Hamashiach, Yahushua, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. So now let's jump down. It says in verse 31, it says, what shall we then say to these things? If our power, Yahweh Bahasham, Yahushua, is with the elect, be for us, who can be against us, the hopeful elect? He that spared not his own son, but delivered him up for us all, how shall he not with him also freely give us all things? Who shall lay anything to the charge of Yahweh Bahasham, Yahushua's elect? It is Yahweh Bahasham, Yahushua Bahasham Ha Rakah Kodash that justifieth. So let's go into that word justifieth. It says to render righteous, or such he ought to be. Dekaio. It says to show, exhibit, events, reveal the presence of a quality. So that's why we're going to display spiritual power, which we're already doing by the name of Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Yahweh is the Heavenly Father, which He gave us His word, which speaks of His Son, Yahweh Shai, in prophecy. All right? That's why we have this ministry. He's showing us mercy. It says, one to be righteous such as He is, which He condemns sin in a sinful body. And I'm talking about Yahweh Shai, the son of Yahweh, and wishes Himself to be considered, which were hopeful elect. To declare, pronounce one to be just, righteous, or such as he ought to be. So this is what we're doing. We're walking as a hopeful elect, proclaiming the truth to the hopeful elect. And Yahweh is going to send His Son, Yahweh Shai, the head of the hopeful elect. It says, to render, i.e., in other words, to show or regard as just or innocent. See, and that's what the elect. Now, when you go into the root word, the kaios, the kaios, it says righteous, observing divine laws, which the word observing, it says notice or perceive something and register it in your mind as being significant, which the word significant means significantly great or important, to be worthy of attention. See, and that's what the elect are. They're men that the Spirit upon them allows them to see Yahweh and His Son Yahweh Shai through the Word by Spirit, and understand that it is precious to have this truth. Yahweh Shai is precious, and He makes us precious before the Almighty through His sacrifice by His blood. We're adopted in. This right is only given to the Israelites, not to any other nation. He has not dealt with any other nation in this way. It's only for the Israelites. Romans 9 verse 4, who are Israelites? Which this is Apostle Paul telling you. Which he was a master in the old law, and he understood that when he saw Yahweh Shai allowed him to understand that this was only for the Israelites. And he was the apostle sent out to the Israelites that were scattered amongst the heathen. This is why it talks about Gentiles in the New Testament. Now, Apostle Paul was not one of the original 12, but he was made an apostle after the resurrection of Yahweh Shai by Yahweh Shai meeting him on the road to Damascus. It says, who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption and the glory in the covenants and the giving of the law and the service of our power, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, by the Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, and the promises which we have, the prophecies which are the promises, whose are the fathers. It was given to our forefathers, the Israelites, the sons of Jacob, and of whom, as concerning the flesh, Hamashiach came. He came as an Israelite. He's coming for the Israelites. Salvation is only for the Israelites, who is over all, but Yahweh blessed forever. Amen. Which he made him the Messiah. When he comes back, he'll be taller than us all. And you know, when he gives us a crown, we're still going to worship him, for he is our head. All right. And through him, we were redeemed back to our Father, our power, Yahweh. So we give all praise and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Ha Rakah Kodash. Double honors to our apostle elders, which ruled Great Millstone well and which taught us the truth. And shalom to the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel, Wa Abba Babal.